Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. The AJ Daniel Dubois Wembley Stadium big blockbuster event, that's only about 3 weeks away now, just a little bit over. And we're talking about 21st of September. And I'm not hearing a lot of faith in Daniel Dubois. Whenever I ask people, or people leave comments in videos with other videos I've done, I'm not hearing many people say they think Dubois is going to win. And to be honest, obviously it's not that surprising that AJ is the favourite. I mean, I would have predicted that, and I think he is the favourite too. But the idea that a lot of people are kind of dismissing Dubois, I think, is quite naive. And I thought I'd talk a little bit about this because it's curious to sort of do a bit of digging and decide why Dubois is not being given as much of a chance as you might think he had or has. Look, we know about Joshua, 28 wins, most of them by knockout, 3 defeats, no draws. Dubois, 21 wins, 20 KOs, 2 defeats to Joe Joyce and Usyk. Both big bangers, obviously. AJ, his last defeat was to Usyk. He's come back with 4 wins of varying quality. He probably looked most impressive against Wallin, although a lot of people say, well, who's Otto Wallin? Well, he's the same Otto Wallin that gave Fury a lot to think about. Badly cut his eye. The last defeat for Dubois, when you think about it, was not that long ago. It was only in August of last year. God, it's only a year ago. But he's come back with those 2 good wins against undefeated fighters. Jarrell Miller, who was undefeated in 26. I think he had a draw on his record. And Filip Hrgović, which was, I think, obviously the more impressive of the 2, because Hrgović was being classed as possibly a future champion and may still be. But he only had 17 wins. He was undefeated, but he only had 17 wins. In his career, Filip Hrgović was very sort of stop-start. Now, if you look at the 2 fights that Dubois has had since the Usyk defeat, he did answer quite a few questions in those fights. If you think back to the Miller fight, halfway through it, I mean, Miller was putting up, whatever you think of Miller, I don't have a high opinion of him, but, whatever you think of his out-of-the-ring activities, his failed PED test and everything, he's a big lump, a big old unit, and he was well over 300 pounds, and he was putting consistent pressure on Dubois, and he does have a very good chin, Miller, a very good chin. In fact, his draw, which a lot of us think he probably won the fight against Andy Ruiz, he proved that he is actually a pretty decent heavyweight when he is supposedly clean. And he was putting very good pressure on Dubois. Halfway through the fight, maybe the 5th round, I remember thinking, I think Dubois could unravel here. This was a 10-round fight, not a 12, which was just as well for Dubois, I was thinking. But in actual fact, Dubois, who, when you consider only 4 months previously had been knocked out in 9 by Usyk, he actually hung tough, and he actually showed a fair old bit. A bit of grit, a bit of metal, and came back and ended up stopping Miller in the final round. And yeah, you can say Miller was way out of shape, which he always is, and he ran out of gas and so on. But that was a mental hurdle, quite a considerable hurdle. Not so much a hurdle, more of a sort of high jump that Dubois had to get over, and he did it. And then against Hrgović, he, perhaps because of that Miller win, his confidence was clearly very, very high in the build-up to the Hrgović fight. Hrgović almost dismissed him, but Dubois was like, no, I'm coming for you, and I will stand there and I will fight. And he did. And although he was quite easy to hit, nevertheless, Hrgović couldn't really put a dent in him, which I think was slightly surprising. He was landing those right hands big time, and Dubois was just sort of soaking it all up and was coming back. And a lot of people have said, I mean, Hrgović ended up with cuts above both his eyes, and in fact the fight was stopped on a TKO in the 8th round. A lot of people said, well, those cuts were caused by the headbutt, by headbutts, not by punches. the head was going in from Dubois, but he fought so aggressively, and considering Hrgović was so dismissive of him and prides himself on being a real tough guy, you've got to ask, well, why did Hrgović allow himself to be bullied so badly? If he maybe did he take Dubois lightly? You would think possibly because of his comments before the fight, but Dubois, again, he showed real determination. He showed a fair bit of grit in that fight. Now, a lot of people will say, and I think this is possibly why they're not giving him as much of a chance against Joshua as you might think, is because I think I've already mentioned the reasons, really. Number one, he's easy to hit. He was easy to hit in that Hrgović fight. And if Joshua hits you, you're going to stay hit, chances are. But also, if you look back a year ago to the Usyk fight, which was, I think it was almost a year to the day, maybe a year and a week or something like that. Usyk basically broke down Dubois mentally. And in fact, Dubois in that fight quit. He didn't know where he was, didn't know what to do. There was that sort of fake controversy with the low blow and all this that was blown way out of proportion. But Dubois essentially ran out of ideas. He didn't have the imagination. He couldn't handle the type of pressure that Usyk puts on. And so he got stopped. That was in Poland, over in Poland. So he was the away fighter as well. Poland is on the border of Ukraine. We know what's going on in Ukraine. So Usyk couldn't have a homecoming, but that was the next best thing. And he kind of mentally unraveled as the fight progressed, even though he was doing little patches of good work for the first 5 rounds, 6 rounds. Now, we know about his other defeat, which was to Joe Joyce, where he quit, although I think that was a completely different kettle of fish. I think if he got a busted eye socket, I mean, the pain, I've never had a busted eye socket, thank God. The pain must be excruciating. And also he was a lot younger. I mean, we're going back to 2020. What is he now? He's 26 now, Dubois. So we're talking, he was about, 22 at the time. And he had a busted eye socket and he quit in 10 rounds. He took a knee and took the count, which I don't begrudge. I don't hold that against him. A lot of people will say, including fighters, will say, you've got to fight until your eyes are hanging out of your sockets and your limbs are broken and all this sort of crap. And, you know, fighters can do things that I can only dream of, and probably you too, you know, but very, very few fighters can fight through that type of adversity, with that type of physical pain. Very, very few. I mean, even legends of, you know, couldn't suck up and suffer that type of pain and damage without capitulating. So I don't hold that much against the quitting against Joe Joyce. The Alexander Usyk capitulation, you could argue, was, again, a young man, or was he 25 at the time, a learning curve, if you like. He learned a lot from that fight. I don't think he did learn a lot from that fight. You know, okay, jumping in with Miller 4 months later, that was not a gimme. A lot of people thought Miller would beat Dubois, grind him down. I had my suspicions. Filip Hrgović, I mean, again, you know, and that was only 6 months later, taking on Filip Hrgović, stopping him. Clearly, Dubois has kind of matured. I think emotionally, his psyche seems to have matured. Physically, he's maturing. I mean, he turned pro when he was, 18, 19. He's now only 26, which is still young for a heavyweight, very young. So why are people not giving him a great deal of chance against AJ? Perhaps it is because they think that Joshua will put not just pressure, but the type of concerted, intelligent pressure on Dubois over 12 rounds, not 10, that Usyk did. And Joshua, supposedly being a bigger fighter than Usyk, will again take Daniel back to that place. It's almost like you revert to your type settings. You know what I mean? And they think that AJ may have too much experience, too much nous, too much fistic education for him, and won't be like Hrgović, taking Dubois lightly or, just pinging the right hand over. And yes, it was landing, but which again is a Dubois very easy to hit. Not a good thing against AJ, but AJ will use the jab far better than Hrgović did, or Miller. Will look to counter punch, which I don't think certainly Miller wasn't looking to do. And we'll just know a bit too much and have a bit too much savvy, a bit too much nous for Dubois. And we'll grind him down and maybe knock him out, or certainly win on points. That seems to be the way people are thinking. And certainly when you look at AJ, the 4 fights he had since he lost the two Usyk contests back to back, again, he lost to Usyk twice, 24 rounds. But look, again, that's a learning curve. That was only in 2022, the second one. So that's only 2 years ago. But he came back against Jermaine Franklin. He won a 12-rounder. Franklin is a very durable fighter, doesn't hit hard. But then he had the Robert Helenius thing, which was a strange one because he was meant to fight Dillian White. Helenius came in, bloodied his nose, his mouth, but he got the job done in the highlight reel spectacular fashion. Didn't look that great in the earlier rounds against Helenius, who'd been done in a round by Wilder. Then the Otto Wallin fight, which I mentioned, although Wallin, they do, the old cliche about styles making fights. Maybe Wallin the style wasn't there for AJ, although I still think AJ did his work very, very well in that fight. And then there was that spectacular knockout of Francis Ngannou, but of course Ngannou never won a professional fight in his life, had only had one previously. Yes, he did well against, Tyson Fury, very well, but let's not kid ourselves. He's a ranked novice and he was wide open for Joshua to just tee off on him. I don't think there's any doubt that that Dubois will be AJ's finest opponent since Usyk. And I definitely think AJ is the favourite for the reasons I've just covered in this video. But I do feel that Dubois may have a better chance than people are giving him credit for. To dismiss him, I think, is a very shallow-minded thing to do. And I definitely think AJ will have to be right on the money, physically and mentally, and concentrating for every second of every round. Because until he does start to mentally erode Dubois, Dubois will be a threat. Because Dubois did not show any threat of capitulating against Big Pharma, and he did not show anything other than a great deal of aggression and a come forward offense against Filip Hrgović. So I think in order for AJ to keep Dubois in his box, he's going to have to hurt him. He's going to have to outbox him so convincingly that Dubois' belief tends to wane. There is no doubt that this is a huge jump up for Daniel Dubois, but it's also a fight that I think AJ is going to have to really concentrate on and really, really be on point in many, many respects. So those are some thoughts. What do you think? Do you think AJ deserves this, extreme favoritism? A lot of people, when I hear them talk, they're making it like a 75-25 fight or even an 80-20 fight. I don't know. I'd say it's 65-35 myself, but you let me know what you think. Give me your reasons as well, as to why you think, whatever your opinions are, just leave them below and I'll have a read as always. And yes, please, if you're new to this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, because you're supporting the channel, which is fantastic. And also, if you could hit the like button, I'd greatly appreciate that, and we'll build the channel up together. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time, as always, and I will speak to you later. Bye for now.